Before we get started, please go over to Amazon.com and grab a copy of my book, Education and Justice. If you have an African-American son in public school, you need this book because I teach you the many ways that public schools mistreat African-American boys and what you can do to help your son. So go over there and get your copy immediately. The one thing African Americans must start doing immediately is reading. Let me say it again. The one thing that African Americans must start doing immediately is reading. I'm going to say it for the third time. The one thing that more African American people must do immediately is reading, becoming an avid reader. Did you know that reading for blacks during slavery was a criminal offense? The Alabama State Code of 1833 stated, and I quote, "Any person who shall attempt to teach any free person of color or slave to spell, read, or write, shall upon conviction thereof by indictment be fined for not less than $250, not more than $500. People who taught African American people during slavery to read were fined the hefty sum, and that was a big sum back in 1833, $250 up to $500. It was a criminal offense for African Americans to be able to read. Now, Frederick Douglass overheard his enslaver say, "You cannot enslave a man who can read." Let that hit you. And it is the one reason that we must become avid readers. Now, let me read something for you, an excerpt from my book, Education and Justice. Teresa Perry, one of the scholars who wrote Young, Gifted, and African American, Promoting High Achievement Among African American Students, explains that the fervent thirst for education of the enslaved blacks during slavery derived from their unique, quote, philosophy of education, a philosophy that said that education is more than a symbol of freedom, it is freedom. Perry maintains that this powerful philosophy enabled blacks to endure beatings, lynchings, amputations, and other forms of torture in order to acquire literacy. It even motivated them to use their scant wages to pay large sums of money to poor whites for reading lessons. Now again, keep in mind in Alabama, those poor whites would have been fined $250 up to $500 for teaching enslaved blacks how to read. Nevertheless, our ancestors thirst to know how to read. Why? Because, as Professor Perry said, in their minds, it was freedom. Reading was freedom. Unfortunately, today, many young blacks no longer consider education to be a path to or a symbol of freedom. They do not value education as our ancestors did. Our ancestors, many of whom suffered torture and death for literacy, would be appalled to know that some blacks today are wasting their opportunity to get formal education. That is sobering. It was in the law in the state of Alabama and other states that you couldn't teach blacks, whether free or enslaved, to read. Nevertheless, that didn't stop our ancestors from thirsting for the ability to read, because to them, that was freedom. That was freedom. And that was the one way also that the enslaver knew that we could be enslaved, because we didn't have that knowledge up here. And when a man is blind or a woman is blind up here because they can't read, then you can tell them anything. You can do almost anything to them, and they will accept it. God says, my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. So the one thing that African Americans must do more of is reading. And you parents out there, you need to start teaching your kids, developing a thirst and love for reading in your kids very, very, very early. As soon as you know they're conceived, start reading to them. They can tell what's going on outside the womb. And from age 2 to 5, let me read another excerpt of my book for you. It says, age 2 through 5 is an excellent time to increase the amount of time you spend reading to your son or daughter. The authors of a national report entitled Becoming a Nation of Readers, the report of the Commission of Reading, argue that reading aloud to children is, quote, I'm quoting them, the single most important activity African American parents can do to produce strong readers. Just start reading to them. If you're a grandparent, every time they come to your house, read to them. Read to them. Read to them. And that will produce children who enjoy reading, just seeing grandma or mom, dad, grandpa reading. That will instill a love for books in them. Now, despite this reprehensible criminalization of Black literacy, despite all that, as we just read, our enslaved ancestors thirst for knowledge. And they were onto something, because not only does it prevent us from being someone's slave or misled and treated like slaves, there are many other benefits as well. So let me share a few of the many benefits that come from reading. First, reading significantly lowers stress levels. Man, grab you a good book, ball up in your favorite chair or lay across the bed, or while you're having a meal, read a book. Start reading a book. It will lower stress. Reading increases income potential. Because think about it, if you can read well, then when you take tests on the job, when you have to study the manual, when you have to do whatever, oftentimes it involves some sort of reading. And if you can read well, then yes, that's going to be noticed, and that's going to help your income rise. Reading decreases the dropout rate. So again, parents, grandparents, listen, if you want to decrease your child dropping out of school, then help them become strong readers. Reading decreases the success of disinformation. Disinformation is hitting our people from all sides. A lot of it coming from people who look just like us. And that disinformation is misleading so many African Americans. It's shameful. So reading decreases the impact of disinformation. Reading also strengthens your brain. That's really important for both young and old people, right? The younger you are, as I said, the more you have your child learning to read, loving to read, the more that's going to expand their brains. And with us older folks, it's going to help our brains as well, right? Can ward off some of the onset or onslaught of dementia and other things. Reading also improves critical thinking. How important is critical thinking? Being able to literally think through a situation, one step by one step by one step. Either deductive reasoning or constructive reasoning, it's all important. Critical thinking is so needed nowadays and so absolutely important for our people. Again, if for nothing else, just to be able to ward off disinformation, just to be able to say, hey, you know, they used to call it back when I was growing up, just being able to put 1 and 1 together or 2 and 2 together and being able to walk that through and say, nah, that doesn't make any sense to me. That's critical thinking. Reading improves that. Reading at home boosts school performance later on. So cut that TV off. take the kids' smart devices, no getting on the internet, no scrolling Instagram or TikTok until they have done some reading first. That will follow them right in their school lessons. All right? Reading increases vocabulary, raises self-esteem, and builds good communication skills. See, these are just a few of the benefits of reading. Reading can reduce mortality by 20%. That is, over 12 years. 12 years can be added to our lives. Those of us who, especially again, up in age, reading is a wonderful thing for us to be doing. But it is critical and urgent for the younger generation. All right, so because of I'm a high school dropout. I tell you all that all the time. I dropped out in the 10th grade. But I was an avid reader even as a teenager. I just personally love reading. I grew up in a small rural country town, and reading was like my window to the world. I could see beyond the cornfields. I could see beyond the tobacco fields. I could see beyond the turkeys and the chickens by going to the public library and just staying there all day and reading different books. Okay? My window to the world. So today I'm reading at least 3 books at all times. Some for work, some to keep me abreast of the law, but also just because I enjoy a good book. I mean, it is better than a movie. I enjoy a good book. So I'm reading all the time. I seldom watch TV. We barely cut it on, may watch the evening news, and that's about it. But for the most part, it's just my wife and I in the house. We read. I average about a book a week or a week and a half. She and I both. We love reading. So let me show you how reading recently helped me in a situation. Okay? So I came across this African-American organization called the Frederick Douglass Foundation. So when I just saw the name Frederick Douglass, I smiled, I started smiling, and said, this must be a wonderful organization that carries Frederick Douglass's name. It has to be. But then I started reading the fine print. And it turns out this organization, or at least chapters of this organization, contributed to Project 2025. The name of the organization is the Frederick Douglass Foundation, and here it contributed to Project 2025. So an organization that carries the name of the great Frederick Douglass contributed to Project 2025. Of course, I said, oh, wow, oh, no. I was blown away. See, this is an example of what I mean by pro-Black imposter. Because you're not truly pro-Black contributing to a plan to help MAGA implement Project 2025. I've read Project 2025. It is not pro-Black. It is definitely not pro-Black. We're talking about an organization that is gutting the Department of Education, defunding Black history, attacking civil rights, cutting jobs for Black federal employees, attacking DEI, and so on. No, that's not pro-Black, and Frederick Douglass definitely would not have supported Project 2025. So without being a reader to read between the headlines, to go beyond the big print and start actually reading about this organization, I would have started supporting an organization connected to Trump, MAGA, the Heritage Foundation, and Project 2025, just because it had the name Frederick Douglass. See, that's the pro-Black looking part of it. But you got to go deeper. And then you'll start seeing what's really going on with that organization. And see, that's how Trump is. He increases his support amongst African Americans by using pro-Black imposters to mislead non-Black reading blacks, okay, with disinformation. You see, disinformation couldn't go anywhere if our people were a nation of readers. You see, disinformation wouldn't go anywhere if our people were a nation of readers. And so that's why MAGA and Trump and pro-black imposters all focus on low-level voters, both white and black. It's not just a black phenomena, right? Focusing on low-level readers, that's not just a black phenomena. Yeah, I mean, it's whites too. But fortunately, I am an avid reader. Just because I'm an attorney, first of all, have to stay abreast of the practice of law and the law, the changes in the law and so forth. But I love just reading just a good book. Now, if it's a good legal story, that's even better, right? But no, I just love reading generally. So I'm encouraging you to increase your reading or to become a reader. And just start where you are. You may say, well, I'm not a great reader, and that's why I don't. Start where you are. Start where you are, and that reading muscle will get bigger and stronger and bigger and stronger and bigger and stronger. Start where you are. Okay, yeah, of course, you don't want to pick up some deep, thick book that is filled with a lot of dense information. So start where you are, and then just stick with it. Stick with it. Read every day, read every day, read every day, read every day. And again, that reading muscle, just like these muscles, will become stronger. All right? And also check out our BARS reading program at lljp.org. The BARS reading program at lljp.org. It was a program we started and implemented this past summer to help young African American boys become better readers, because the statistics say about 10% of them, okay, somewhere between 8 to about 12% of them, by the time they reach 8th grade, are not reading on grade level. And unfortunately, that number worsens the more they articulate. So by the time they get to the 12th grade, it's even worse. And that poses a national threat for our community, for the African American community. All right? So go check out BARS. We are trying to convert it from just a summer reading program to an all-around reading program. All right? So again, the one thing that African Americans must do is read more. All right? Thank you for watching this video. And remember, as always, stay woke.